So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I was discussing with Trevor the first time we met many years ago at the first Kyoto conference, how much the industry has changed. And I am someone who feels quite humbled to have met Trevor, who was giving the keynote then, to be able to share the stage with him and so many of you today. At LBMA, we are very privileged to get to talk about gold in many markets around the world, but it is really a treat to come and share the discussion with you when it comes to PGMs. The request for the speech was, what can the PGM market learn from the gold industry? But actually, I think that is a mutual discussion, because there's a lot that we can learn from you as well. I've also prepared a short video for those of you who aren't as familiar with LBMA and what our focus is for this year and beyond, to better understand our mission in terms of advancing standards and where you can get involved. And hopefully, thank you. So LBMA is dedicated to the role it plays in terms of advancing standards, in terms of London good delivery, and ensuring that it remains the relevant standard for the world's gold markets. But we cannot do this role alone. We have to work with global markets around the world, with regulators and governments, to ensure that it is a standard that is trusted. Trust is something that is earned, and it's built by transparency. One of the biggest lessons that we have learned over the history of gold is the importance of that transparency. So the London gold market dates its origins back to 1671, with a few milestones in between. Now, it's not to focus in terms of the track record here of over 300 years, but it's really to focus on where have we had wins and how you can avoid some of those losses. So the importance of transparency in terms of price is something that we learned very quickly. The world has been focused on the importance of the precious metals prices for many years, but it's something that we left a little too long to make transparent to the wider world. We would encourage you not just on prices, but also on data to ensure that you're sharing these, not just with your local centers, but with global centers and potential investors. I think it's quite an uncertain world we live in, and probably the one thing we can be certain of is that fragmentation and challenges and friction will continue. So the importance of maintaining global standards is more important than ever. Comments today about the drive in terms of demand for physical. I think the friction has never been so poignant as the dislocation between US and New York with the mere threat of possible tariffs on gold. Something the LBMA has been focused on is how we reduce that friction. But I think the opportunities has also come in the rise of the price, and that is driven primarily by central bank demand. You saw the spectacular rise last year when there was a potential threat to independence of the US Fed. You also saw that price go down again when sense prevailed and a more typical choice was being chosen for the US Fed chair. Central bank involvement has been important, but in some ways unsurprising. Gold has been part of the central bank portfolio for over 300 years. And there is certainly no reason that PGMs couldn't become part of those portfolios as well. But as we look around the world, we're delighted to see the growth announced in Singapore with becoming a stronger regional hub, with Hong Kong again this week. This is not something we see as a competition, but ultimately with regards to the growth in terms of the global liquidity. So London's share of that global liquidity is 197,000 billion US dollars a day. Contrast to that is PGMs in terms of 5.65 for platinum and palladium. Here you have lessons that we can learn from you in terms of the growth of regional hubs such as Guangzhou and what that means to the global market. But what is unique about PGMs is ultimately the industrial element. And again, I think the gold market could learn in terms of how the downstream and the upstream come together in forums like today and over the next couple days to discuss the opportunities and challenges. This is something I think gold would really benefit from as well. So we focus a lot on gold and silver volumes, but you might not know we've actually been publishing platinum and palladium for over 7 years as well. This is not just a gross number, it's broken down on a daily basis by spot, forward, and options. And again, a big recommendation to ensure that you drive for this transparency, including transparency on stocks, even if it's uncomfortable, particularly if it's uncomfortable, because investors need to understand the size of the pool before they dive in. As we continue to focus on the future and where we can work together, friction has been something that's been very challenging. As I mentioned with the US tariff war, we have been working hard to see gold outside of the tariff system. We're continuing to educate US regulators when it comes to silver, and we would be very grateful to join PGM colleagues in doing the same for the platinum group metals. I think Jonathan mentioned the importance of the LPPM standards, and these are standards that are used around the world because they should be embraced and developed on a global basis, and we encourage you to do that. One of the other aspects of inclusion and transparency is price, as I mentioned at the outset. We are delighted to have successfully transitioned the PGM benchmarks in London onto the ICE Benchmark Administration platform. This means that price participants who are active for gold and silver could more easily join the PGM auctions. In talking about joining, we would also like to see more Asian participation. I announced 3 weeks ago that we are looking to move the time of the morning gold benchmark to include Asian trading hours. And we welcome any price participants to step forward. We have had feedback from London, but we need to build the bridge from both sides. It's not just about London changing, it's about Asian market participants stepping forward and getting involved. The maybe one final message that's not missing from here, and it comes back to friction, is the importance of tax and VAT. We have seen time and time again as markets around the world look to gain revenue by taxing precious metals markets. This is something we have seen hasn't been successful in the long term. It tends to move liquidity elsewhere, and is something I would encourage there to be changes. Ultimately, our focus is all about market integrity and how we use standards and transparencies to achieve that. My one point on our Gold Bar Integrity initiative, we are focused on how we can embrace technology. It's always humbling to be here in China to understand how far behind we are in many ways on technology. But I think we can always see the importance of investing, and that's what we look to do with the GBI platform. So in conclusion, in terms of lessons and what we can learn from each other, transparency is so important if you want to continue to grow these markets. Liquidity should be thought of on a global basis and how transparency should add to that. Standards need to be advanced, embraced, and discussed. And I think the one thing that I've certainly taken away for the gold market is the importance of collaboration, something that's well understood in the PGM world and that we could learn from you. Thank you for your time and attention.